Hey everybody, this is a slightly different take on making a circle. This is a template or jig, if you want to call it, um, that I'm making for my router. You can also use a jigsaw, and basically this circle that's being cut out here will be the axis for the rotation of this long arm. And anywhere along that rectangular cutout portion, you can place your router or your jigsaw, and I'll show you that process here in a moment by using some painter's tape and some super glue. So feel free to leave a comment, watch the rest of the video, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. But I'm going to chime in here every so often just so I can give you some pointers. So I'm putting some super glue on the tape on this side, and then I will take the circle that I've applied tape to as well and get it towards the center point, which I have showing visible between the two pieces of tape, or as close as possible. Push down on it, let it dry. Afterward, and you see here, there's the rotation. Place your router or your jigsaw anywhere along that open hole. Take your measurements, figure out where you need that circle to be located as far as your radius. I'm also going to add some tape to the bottom of the router. And I want to point out that I did trace out the shape of the router on the tape that is attached to the arm down here below. And that way I can glue it down pretty close to the position that I need it, probably within about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. I like to go a little bit outward, so this way I can always sand everything down to the final dimensions and have a nice fit. Another thing I would like to point out is that I am making sure that I do not go too deep on the first routing. This way I avoid chip out, tear out, whatever you want to call it. And then I'll go over it a second time. I'll go wider after that. Now, one important feature of this template or jig is the fact that once I'm done, there will be no pinholes, there will be no screw holes, there will be no holes on the bottom of this cutting board or circle once I'm finished, because I'll be able to peel away this tape and have no markings left. Now I went ahead and changed the maximum depth adjustment knob on this cheapy Chicago Electric router. This way I can drop down the routing depth about another eighth of an inch, and I'll have the achieved depth of route on this piece. I previously had a long bolt sticking out of this router, and I've removed it since. Unfortunately, that's one of the downsides of buying cheap tools. Sometimes you get parts of the tools that fall apart or don't work, so you make your own parts that do work. And that is what I do sometimes. I make my own parts. So, don't laugh, just realize it works. Or heck, go ahead and laugh, what do I care? It was cheap. For this portion here, I'm going to elevate the board upward so that the router bit does not dig into the concrete floor that I'm positioned on here. I'm actually using a 1/4 inch spiral upcut bit, and the good face of the cutting board is facing downward, so that way any cutout, tear out, chip out will actually happen on the bottom side of the board. If you have another project that you're working on, definitely keep that in mind. Just in case anything bad happens, it'll be less noticeable. And here is the part where we take off the little circle. Just basically peel off the tape, and guess what's underneath? No hole. Pop the other board off, get rid of the tape, do some sanding, get some color on this thing, or if you go for the natural look, this is an ash, and personally I like the natural look to woods. I don't really like them all glossy, but to each their own, as well as the color. Here I'm going to go ahead and sand off the edges, make them smooth basically with a 240 grit, just soften up all the edges. And you'll notice I have a clamp there. If you don't get enough pressure on that thing, you'll see what happens. Wait for it. Again, get some clamp pressure on there, but sometimes things happen, and this just happened to grab in two spots. Luckily it's a hard ash and there was no damage to it. I'm going to cut out a little circle here. Basically you can do this with a router or you can do it with a jigsaw and then come back and sand, and sand some more. Here's the piece without any finish. Again, to each their own. I enjoy this as well as the color. Again, it's not going to be food safe. It's not intended to have food cut on it. It's more of a decorative cover and a utility extra countertop space, I guess, when you fill in the sink. And you'll see that once I have it in place here at the end. So I'm using an oil-based polyurethane from Varathane, and I've added about a 10% of the thinner, and I'm spraying the first coat on here, making sure I go around all the edges first, and then I come back and do a final pass in two directions. I try to follow the grain on the first and then come back in the opposite direction on the second pass, and then let this thing dry. Here's the final product. You're going to see the amount of shine and reflection coming off of this. Again, it's a semi-gloss. I added some satin to it, and you can always dull it down with steel wool or a brown paper bag. But here it is in the Airstream Sink, and you'll see the notch that's cut out. I didn't intend it to be that way, but the sponge holder just happens to be there, and you can use that to pick it up out of the sink. Again, like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this, and thank you very much.